Jesse, are you expecting Alphonso Davies to be here in Charlotte? And if not, when are you expecting him to join up with the group?
Alphonso will be here on the 31st in Edmonton. So we spoke with Bayern and thought that the best thing for him was to continue his initial recovery treatment until the 28th. Then we're giving him a few days to, get away, and then he'll be joining us the 31st, and we'll pick up his rehab from there and try to put him in a position to physically succeed and to be part of our team. So we're excited because we haven't seen him in a while. So I've visited him a few times, but I think for the team, it'll be a real boost to have him back in the group, and we'll be pushing to get him fit and strong and healthy so he can contribute to our matches.
How would you describe how you and Bayern have had to manage that situation? There have been several reports that have come out of Germany over the last few weeks with suggestions inside Bayern's camp that they should have all of the say and agency about when he plays and if he should play at a World Cup.
Look, Bayern's a big club, and so in Germany, if someone sneezes in their training ground, then it shows up in the Bild Zeitung. But the benefit that we've had is that Christoph Freund and by the way, Freund means friend in German, and Christoph is a friend of mine, and we worked together for 2 years in Salzburg, and so he and I have had really good discussions over the last 2 years about Alphonso. And in the end, what we both want is for Alphonso to be strong and healthy and be available for the biggest matches for both Bayern and for us. Unfortunately, over the last year plus, it hasn't gone that way, but we're all working together, to try to help that situation improve and for most importantly for Alphonso. And I think Alphonso has trust in both sides of the pond right now. And obviously he has frustration, but we all want to set him up to succeed. And the last thing I'll say about Alphonso is he's really excited. He's really excited to get back with the team. He's really excited to push in this World Cup to get himself ready. So, I'm even the one who said to him, take a few days after your treatment and before you come with us to clear your head, to make sure that emotionally and psychologically you are recharged, because when we get him here, it's going to be full steam ahead. So I think that the plan we've created will be a good one for him and for us.
Jesse, we won't ask you a lot about the rest of the roster, but is there something specific that you are going to be looking for with Alphonso to be ready?
No, I mean, what do you mean? Like
just
fitness wise,
yeah,
or
like is there going to be something that's
well, look, we're going to have to be monitoring like his progress on a daily basis. Bayern has put him through certain treatment protocols that they can do in Germany that they can't do in North America. So that's one of the reasons why he stayed in Germany, because we think they have some advanced techniques in terms of the treatments that he can get. So we think that that's been good. They also are very supportive, and they want to see him play in the World Cup. I think that they understand that supporting their players for both club and country is important. We are going to have to take all the information of what they've been doing, make sure there's good communication between our medical departments, which we've been working really hard at, and then make sure that we're all on the same page. We're really respectful of their medical team and what they're trying to do, and we're all just trying to work together. Yeah. So in the end, we're going to have to, I think, just put a process in place for him that doesn't put him further at risk, and make sure that even in his return to play, when we're talking about minutes, and we're even evaluating, like, do we put together some test matches after Bosnia, after Qatar, after Switzerland, so that Alphonso can get exactly what he needs, along with our other players, right? So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to try to put all our players in position to succeed in this week coming up before we name the full squad, and then throughout the tournament, so that we can achieve our goals of making a deep run and setting up our best players to be as strong and healthy and ready as possible.
Do you think he'll play in the World Cup?
Yes, I think Alphonso will play in the World Cup.
Do you think it'll be on June 12th?
No, I don't think he'll be ready quite on June 12th, but we'll see.
Yeah, question.
What about Promise David?
He is looking incredibly strong. So he trained all last week here with us. He did a lot of fitness. He looks fitter than he's ever looked since we've known him. He looks as close to 100% as we could hope. Like, he's going to make the squad and he's going to be ready for June 12th. I'm certain of that. So he's had a really good week. He's put a lot of hard work into his nutrition, his sleep, his recovery, his gym work. Like he's been very diligent, which is, we all know the personality of Toby, and to see his level of desire and commitment to get himself ready has been a revelation for, I think, him. And so we're going to use that in all right ways, but he's going to be ready. He'll be ready June 12th.
Would you mind just going through some of the other injured guys, Moyes?
How much time do we have,
Well,
Josh?
we're here all week.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll go through all of them.
Yeah.
Moyes is trending in an incredibly positive direction. He played 32 minutes in our test match on Sunday against Charlotte Independence. He's feeling great. He's looking great. He's looking like himself more and more every day. He's going to have a full week of training and I think be ready for minutes in the Uzbekistan, maybe even 45. Let's see how the week trends. Alfie Jones, we've made incredible progress with. He's been in our camp or in our care for over 2 weeks. And we think we identified the exact problem that's going on. And so he'll be in a lot of full training this week and I think be preparing himself to be ready for the squad. And we'll see how the week goes. Ali Ahmed is ahead of schedule, we think, trending in a really good way. He'll be in parts of training this week. Richie Larea is ready to be in full training. And we think he'll be ready for minutes against Uzbekistan for sure. Shaf, we haven't seen yet, but we've been in very close contact with LAFC. And we're hopeful that they say that they think based on all of the on the table measurements and tests that he is ahead of schedule. And he has I think a history of recovering quickly. So we're hopeful. We'll see what that looks like. And we're hopeful there. Ralph Prizo played minutes. He's looking good. Luke is out of concussion protocol and should be ready to start training with us. Derek has looked good this week. Alistair finished with 2 90-minute matches in his season. He's feeling really good and positive. That's pretty much everyone, I think, right? Yeah.
How would you characterize the number of injuries that your team's had over the last months, and is there anything to attribute it to?
I don't know. I mean, I've asked myself that. Is it just bad luck? Is it, that our players are all now playing at higher levels than they have previously? But that's what we want. But in the end, I'm even going to figure out we're going to do some kind of ceremony when we sit down together tomorrow. And we're going to remove all the negative mojo and then we're going to move forward positively. And we're not going to make any excuses. We're not going to complain about anything. We're going to be all positive and making sure that everything we do is about a relentless desire to achieve our goals. And we're not letting anything get away. And by the way, I said from the beginning that one of the main goals of what needed to be accomplished over the last 2 years when I got the job was we needed to develop a more broad player pool. We needed to have more players that we established at the international level. And we've absolutely done that. And of course, you could look at it glass half full, glass half empty. The half empty is we've had a lot of injuries. Glass half full is they're all coming back and they're all trending in real positive ways. And we're going to have a really good squad, the best squad Canada's ever had. Last tournament, we averaged 27 years for the squad. Right now, we're at about 25. We're going to be younger. We're going to be more dynamic. We're going to have more players playing at a higher level. We're going to be, athletic and strong, and we have a clear identity. And, we're going to be at home. There's no reason why we can't have high expectations for ourselves. So calmly, effectively, in a disciplined way, we're going to make sure that we're ready for whatever challenges come our way. And we're really excited about that. We're really excited about our group.
I was just talking to a player and their eyes widened when they described how intense training has been this week. For you, given the injuries, given you're welcoming players back, how do you balance getting those players back while also getting them through intense sessions, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like wearing a lab coat. Like myself and Pierre and the medical team, we're very familiar with how to train athletes to perform at a high level and not overexpose them. And so the toughest part about managing that is when they're not with us all the time and we get them and they fly cross continent and and then we're trying to figure out how to manage their loads. But when we have them under our umbrella, I think we have a really good understanding of how to push them and their fitness levels, but not too much where we're risking injury. The X factor in this time is that we've got a lot of players coming back in return to play protocol. So, we've been probably, our meeting room is right here. We've probably spent 50% of the time looking at the data, looking at, their loading, their accelerations, decelerations, like all their physical work that we're putting them through, and then measuring what needs to happen on the next day and 2 days and a week to put them in position to be at the best fitness possible without exposing them to further injury. So it's a balancing act. I think last week, as difficult as it was, it set them all up to be in a much better position right now than they were a week ago. And so that part, I think we have some expertise with, and we're going to use that to push these guys, but to not overexpose them.
Hi, Jesse, Tom Stagg, CBC News, nice to meet you.
Hi.
This may be obvious to everyone in the room, but if you could speak to the average Canadian out there who doesn't follow soccer that closely, who may be curious, and you could walk them through this, why is it that the Canadian team is training ahead of a Canadian World Cup in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yeah, so look, what we're going to see, especially in a North American World Cup, is we're going to see higher temperatures, we're going to see more humidity, and we're going to see more national teams that struggle to understand how to manage that in their play. However, we have a lot of temperature-controlled stadiums in the US now, right? So I think Atlanta, Dallas, LA, specifically, those stadiums have roofs, so they can play in different temperatures. But if you ever have to play in Kansas City or Miami or even New York in the summer, you're talking about high levels of heat and humidity, and we learned that through Copa America. Our Canadian boys are not used to playing in the high levels of heat. And what we learned even in Copa America, training down in Atlanta in 36, 37, 38-degree weather, and then conditioning them through fitness and training to understand how to handle those elements, prepared them to be successful in that tournament. So we came down to Carolina to put them in higher heat, higher temperatures, more humidity, as well as with the home World Cup, I think, to create a little bit more of an isolated environment where we could focus on now preparing the team for exactly what we wanted, which is the matches. So then we'll have the time to go to Edmonton and Montreal and eventually Toronto and Vancouver, where, we'll I think, experience the benefits of a home World Cup and of our fans and the energy. But we want to make sure that from a fitness perspective, from a mental perspective, from a psychological perspective, that the concentration and discipline to be exactly what we want to be is been put in place, which mostly the talk will be about preparing ourselves for the matches, not the occasion. And that will be important.
What takeaways did you have over the last two tournaments? Obviously, this team peaked through the tournament during Copa.
Yeah.
And it can be argued that perhaps you guys peaked early
Yeah.
in the Canadian Shield last year.
Yeah.
Different group, I understand.
Yeah.
But your takeaways over the last two summers, what works and what's the process to get this team peaking at the right time?
Well, the fitness that we will do will benefit them. And even in Gold Cup, we weren't able to really, because it happened, everything came to, we had 1 week before the tournament started, right? Here we'll have between, depending on who you're talking about, 2 to 4 weeks, right? So that gives us a bigger runway to specifically physically prepare these players. But look, it's a unique group in terms of their desire and commitment to play with each other, for each other, to play for the national team, to make the country proud. Like, this is something as an American, we always kind of held our hats on when I was with the US national team. And I think that this team does that even better, which I didn't even know was possible until I've started working with them. So that part is, it takes me creating a platform and just little things to encourage it, but also to almost stay out of the way. Because they love each other and they know that this is their team. And I say this a lot, and you guys have heard me say this. I'm not Canadian, right? I'm a foreigner trying to help them be at their best. But this is their national team. This is their moment for their country. And I'm just trying to do everything I can to give them the opportunity to show how great they are. And I know we will. I know we'll get that right. I'll really invest in the players and their opinions and their thoughts about what we're doing and how we can continue to push the envelope as to what we want to be. But look, the identity, the understanding, so many things have been built and are in place over the last 2 years, and now it's just going to be about little reminders and then ramping it up to be ready for June 12th.
How many of the,
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Josh is taking all the questions.
No. With that said, what are you looking for over this week before you make participants?
Well, one is the development of the fitness and health situations, right? So I made it very open in March that I didn't want to have a 32-man squad come to Carolina. And then what did I do? I called in 32 players. But we felt the necessity to do that because the entire strategy had changed based on the fitness and health of many players. So obviously what we're doing is kind of putting everybody in the environment so that they can prepare themselves mentally and physically for if they wind up getting the call. There's a lot of injured players that if in a normal situation, we would already have earmarked in the 26, but not knowing what it'll look like in a week and not knowing what it'll look like or be able to fully predict in 3 weeks, we have to then, I think, have all plans in place for all players to be as prepared as possible that if come June 1st, they're put into the squad, that they are fully ready. So that's what this has become. It's become a wider preparation pool to make sure that we have contingency plans and that we're covered from every angle, positionally, mentally, every way for what we're going to need in the tournament.
how many of the 26 do you think you've assigned right now?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. It depends. Certain scenarios are, let's say that all our defenders get healthy, then maybe we can have one more attacker in the group. But if not all of our defenders get healthy and it looks like maybe 1 or 2 of them are question marks, and then do we take away an attacker to have one more defender to make sure that we have cover? So there's a lot of scenarios that challenge, a typical strategy. Which makes it a little bit, I've tried to communicate with most of the group that look, we have an idea, but we have to be flexible and we have to create enough foundation for all of you to be ready if called upon. And the beauty is they are all fully in. And there's also scenarios that specifically we could go to Edmonton with more than 26 players, even though I've already named the squad then. Right? So, or close to it. So we're going to require these guys to understand that it's not a perfect scenario, but I think they all have a full desire to commit in every way that they possibly can to give them each individually the chance to play in the World Cup, right?
What's the deadline you've given yourself?
Well, we have to give the media 29th. So that's only 5 days from now? 4.
Can you break down why you left Kamal and Junior off of this camp?
Kamal and Junior. So look, I've told all of them that to be ready, right? So whether it was Theo, Kamal, Junior, I told Jaden and Ralph. I already told Jaden and Ralph that they weren't going to be coming into camp, and that changed. So each situation has been very flexible because things change. And I wasn't, I was just hoping getting through the weekend that we weren't going to have any more injuries, and knock on wood, we made it through, right? So I would say that even with James Pantemis, let's talk about James for a second. The situation is there's a new rule in the World Cup that if a goalkeeper gets injured, that you can call another goalkeeper in at any time. So I've told James very clearly that our strategy has been that the 2 established goalkeepers are clear and that we're going to bring a younger goalkeeper for the future and to prepare him. But if there was ever an injury, that he was the name that we would call immediately and that he needs to be ready. So that's the situation with James. And we haven't changed that, even though I said, look, the best thing you can do is make a case for yourself by performing well. And he has done that. But for me, Max and Dane have established themselves that they are the top 2 goalkeepers, and we're preparing both of them to be ready for whichever decision gets made that they're the number 1. And then, so in general, we were just looking at what's the balance of the squad, what kind of qualities do we need in different positions, what players do we have available. I told Junior, for example, that if a type of player that kind of fit his profile went down, that he would be the first one that we'd call in that spot. I told Kamal similarly, like that he still has to be ready if he's called upon. So it's a very difficult situation, but my way of operating is to just be as straightforward and honest with the players as possible so that they understand where they fit in everything, and that if they're called upon, that they're ready. And I think that the players, even when they disagree with me or the decisions have gone against them, they've handled it well. Even if they're not happy with me, I don't expect every player to understand every decision and to agree with me on everything, but they've all been incredibly respectful of the national team and of the other players in this group. And anytime they've been called on, they're ready to give their best.
When will you pick a goalkeeper to start? And could you possibly platoon those goalkeepers?
No, we'll pick one, but we're gonna speak to them when they arrive. We're gonna speak to them about that tomorrow or tonight, because Dane is arriving today, and then we're gonna lay out exactly what the process will be. And then you'll be ready when I'll announce it once I've spoken to those guys.
With all the injuries and bringing in a bigger group as well, does this kind of change the evolution of your team and that Jesse Marsh 101 of high pressing, high tempo football?
Are you crazy, Ben? No, our team is clear. Every player is clear. What we do, how we do it. We're gonna be us. We're gonna be us.
Just a quick question to scaffold up something that was already asked about the players that weren't selected for camp. You had mentioned before that you think about those players a lot. And have you had conversation with those players that weren't selected to go to Charlotte? And how are you anticipating the conversations to go for those that aren't selected or named to the squad on the 29th?
Yeah, I mean, look, they obviously were disappointed. We tried to have an open discussion as to why the decisions were made, and then what would have to happen for them to be considered to be brought in still. And by the way, we talked about the June 1st deadline, and we also talked about the June 10th deadline, because there may be even some players that we put in the squad that don't wind up progressing physically the way that we hope, and that we may have to remove players at some point down the road. So, again, I had conversations with them. I mean, I think I had either conversations or left voice messages with 27 players that had been with us at some point or another. So I think it's really important that the national team coach shows respect to all of the people that have been part of the program to help get it to where it is now. And that was the least I felt I could do to these people that had dedicated themselves to trying to help the national team be what it is. So I'm very thankful for everybody's commitment to this. I couldn't have asked for more from any of them, really. And a lot of them, I flat out told them that based on their quality, their personality, and their commitment, that they deserve to go to the World Cup, even though I wasn't selecting them. Like, think about that. That's a tough message to give. But again, I told all of them, be ready. I'd said no right now, but that can change.
Question, my friend, about Ralph Priso. He came on in the 74th minute for the Whitecaps on the weekend, scored a goal. He's past the 8-week mark. 10 weeks for 100% healthiness would be right at the date of the World Cup. If he hasn't made the squad yet, what are you going to need from Ralph Priso, and what are the odds of him being on the squad and being named?
Well, I saw Thomas Mueller in that interview trying to make a case for Ralph, and Thomas knows me, I think, enough from the times that we've competed against each other. He knows the kind of football. So he's like a dynamic player, a fast player. So look, we know Ralph's a good player. And we want to continue. It was tough on him when he got the injury, but I spoke to Jesper and I said, tell Ralph it's not over. Like, we're going to keep evaluating him, and there's still a lot to be decided in the next months. And so I think Ralph's agent called me. I texted Ralph. We went through different things, but like, I encouraged him to push himself, to get himself back ready, that it wasn't over for him, and he's done that. So we'll take a look at him this week. I think he's potential to fill in a lot of different ways and a lot of different roles. We value the kind of player he is, so he hasn't had quite as much time to be integrated into our process as some of the other players, but we value him as a player, and I think he has a real shot at it. So, let's see how the week goes.